thing that's interesting to me is that this narrative, the narrative of this attack, doesn't match sort of typical international terrorism and the strategies that attacks usually use. So this terror attack targeted a marginalized population, and it's interesting to note that most high-profile terrorist attacks don't hit marginalized populations. For instance, the 9/11 terrorist hit at the heart of the American business establishment, the London Metro, and Madrid train attacks hit everyday commuters. And I think that that's the strategy of most terrorism, because they want to create maximum fear in the entire society. And they therefore try to harm people with whom any member of the society can easily identify. And that's where Mateen's attack doesn't seem to fit the narrative. He's attacking sort of a subculture within a subculture, and leaving many Americans open to sort of defensively tell themselves, well, you know, that couldn't really have been me. I'm not gay, perhaps, or I don't go to clubs. What terrorists usually want to do is scare everyone by saying, that could have been me. And to me, that was kind of the first clue that something different than terrorism in the strictest sort of traditional sense is going on.
In that case, what is different? What do you see here that could explain that difference that you saw?
Well, I think now we're hearing some very interesting reports that he may have frequented the Pulse nightclub, that he used various gay dating apps. It really seems like something fairly psychologically convoluted is going on. I mean, from a psychological point of view, this episode resembles what Freud would have called reaction formation, and that's a defense mechanism in which individuals have unwanted impulses within themselves, and they attempt to master or control those impulses by enacting exactly the opposite behaviors. So if what we're hearing about Mateen is correct, it's as if he needed to convince himself and the world that he was the furthest thing from gay by becoming essentially the most violently anti-gay actor imaginable. That's kind of would be a traditional Freudian kind of interpretation. And there's some evidence that behavior follows this pattern sometimes.
We know that there's been much discussion about whether he's from a Muslim family, whether that Islamic upbringing, if those things you talked about there were going on, whether that would play into some of those pressures he was feeling. What's your view on that?
I think definitely. I think he may have had cultural biases against the LGBT community. I would say, though, that nothing I've read suggests he was particularly devout or religious, and I suspect that his, for instance, declaration of allegiance to ISIS may not actually mean that much in terms of his motivations, that they may have been a bit of an afterthought and sort of a way of legitimizing what he was doing here. But I do think that some of that upbringing could have provided him with the internal conflicts, that it's not okay to have homoerotic feelings, it's not okay to have those urges, which, like I said, may have come into conflict with his beliefs.